Hey, are we live? Welcome to Good Thinking Live. This week, we're streaming live from Portland, Oregon via LinkedIn Live and YouTube Live. So if you are here, let everyone know who you are and where you're from. Because this time each week, most weeks, unless I have a conflict, 9 a.m. Pacific time in the United States, 4 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. Although did it shift? We just fell back. So I don't know what that does to Greenwich Mean Time. We need to get rid of this whole fall. What do you think about, if you are in the States, what do you think about this whole daylight savings time, standard time, back and forth and back and forth? There's a lot of evidence that this is not a good idea. Anyway, we just did it. So we're all kind of like, what? But welcome here. Let us know who you are and where you're from. This is our time to set aside 30 minutes to focus on putting away what to think so we can focus on improving how we think. So again, this is a participatory show, so let us know who you are and where you're from. Let's see. Unfortunately, I have a conflict. I look forward to watching a recording. Okay, well, fantastic, Adam. I wish you could be here in real time, but we appreciate all the comments that happen after the live stream. Barkley, welcome from DC. Servan, welcome from Istanbul. Stephen, greeting from the Pacific Northwest. Abdurrachid, hello, regular good thinker. Oops, what did I do? I clicked on another one, so I can't really see that. Jennifer from Kalamazoo, Michigan. Chris from Connecticut. Hello, everyone. I think I clicked on you, Chris, and then clicked back. So more and more good thinkers are coming on. I'm going to try to greet everyone. Sometimes I miss because it scrolls a little too fast, but we will get started. I'm going to say hi to DJ Salts, and I'm going to say hi to Rain from Indiana, and Zachariah from KSA. Welcome from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And we've got Perry from Dubai. All right. Excellent. Welcome, everyone. First question. Ready? What's more important for people to understand you? What's more important? When you think about, I really want people to understand me, what should they look to really get you? Should they look to A, your intentions, B, your thoughts, C, your feelings, or D, your behavior? So we've got intentions, thoughts, feelings, behavior. Let us know when you think of people who you really want people to understand you. What would you rather them focus on? Put it in the chat. We're gonna do a flipperoo. So there's a lot of questions. I'm gonna say hi to some more people. Winston from Toronto, and Kristen from Connecticut, and Jennifer, been doing it for 53 years. Good thinking for 53 years and focusing on your thinking. Excellent. Ray, welcome from Pennsylvania. Regular good thinker, Ray. Okay, Adam says, I get 10, 15 minutes. Oh, from Fort Mill, South Carolina. So Stephen, D. Okay, so Stephen says D, your behavior. A, another LinkedIn user. See how it shows up sometimes. I don't know. On this system that sometimes just shows LinkedIn user. But A, intentions. D, behavior. Winston says intentions. Barkley says behavior. Servan says behavior. Tanvi says intentions. And Chris says D. And Joe from London. Okay, so it looks like we don't have a lot of people that want people to focus on their thoughts and their feelings. They want to either have people focus on their intentions or their behavior in order to understand you. All right, now we're going to turn it around. When you are trying to understand others, and it can be people that are very much like you, it could be people that are not like you. Pick your. Maybe let's try it. Let's go hard on this, a little harder on this, and say people who are not like you. What do you use to evaluate them? What do you use to evaluate them? Put it in the chat. All right. Now we've got, someone else said behavior. Adam says difference is what they will probably focus versus what I'd like them to focus on. I would like them to focus on my intentions. That's excellent. And I think that gets to, and first rubber chicken of the day, although these are all good answers. So all very interesting. So I want to give everyone rubber chickens, but everyone gets a rubber chicken. You get a rubber chicken. You get a rubber chicken. Okay, we're like Oprah, but instead of cars, we're giving away rubber chickens. Pathetic. All right, reasoning. Abdurrashid says, reasoning. They can't know your thoughts. Excellent. Now, this is a thing that is very tricky. People can't know your thoughts, but how many people seem to think that they know other people's thoughts? Do you find that people assume that they know other people's thoughts? Yes or no? Yes or no? All right. However, your behavior is most observable. Excellent. All you can rely on is behaviors. All you can see, where they come from. Aha. Interesting. Where they come from. Okay. I'd like to elaborate. Their actions, reasoning, emotions, minus behavior in order, or reasoning minus emotions minus behavior. Okay, reasoning, emotions, behavior. Okay, how do you see people's reasoning without seeing their behavior? That's a question. All right, Tanvi, assumptions. Okay, so do you think that people make assumptions about people more than you make assumptions about people? Do other people make assumptions when they're evaluating other people more than you or less than you? And I'm going to tell you a little story while you put in your answers. Okay. There was some research done on this blind spot bias, which we're going to get to in a minute, where subjects were doctors who were given various perks. In the olden days, doctors, and I don't know how this works in other countries, but in the US, doctors used to get a lot of really good perks. They would say something like, okay, it wasn't just like a pen that had the pharmaceutical company on it. Like, with, it was like fancy things. Like they'd say, okay, we'd like you to come and speak on something you're working on. And we're going to, the speech is in Zurich, and we're going to fly you to the Swiss Alps first class in a private jet, whatever. So doctors were asked, do these perks affect what you prescribe or how you do your business, how you doctor? And the doctors almost uniformly said, absolutely not. No. But when they were asked, the same group of doctors, do you think it influences other doctors? Anyone want to take a stab? Universally, what they said? Why don't you put in the chat what you think they said? It does not affect my decision, but does it affect these other doctors, my colleagues, my highly educated colleagues? What do you think? Do you think they said yes? All right, let's get to it. Ray says people believe they can mind read. Yes. Questions, reasons for their behaviors, statements. Okay, statements, but statements are kind of behaviors, right? Statements are behavior, kind of. Let's see. Additionally, ideally, your behavior will reflect your intent. Aha. I don't know about this. A question. What do you guys think about this? I know we're asking a lot of questions. The reason is we were watching football. Saturday is for football. Watching football. And there was some kind of foul. And I said, yeah, that looked like a foul. And my husband said, yeah, but it looked totally unintentional. And we both know it's like, I had said something similar a few minutes before. But it doesn't matter. Like, if you accidentally handball in soccer or in football, depending on where you're talking, it's still a handball, whether you intend to grab it or not. If it kind of hits your hand, it's still a handball. So I'm not sure that intentions always reflect behaviors. All right, but maybe. I see the reasoning through many of the biases they commit. Okay, Abdurrashid, this is going to highlight something. I want you to hold on to this. You see the reasoning through the biases. Let's see. Nope, we all make assumptions. Human beings need to feel safe and label. Aha. No Leah. Rubber chicken. Depends. The ultimate non-committal answer. Depends. Yeah. And you know what? I think that's not, I'm going to give a rubber chicken for that one too. And I'll tell you why. Because it's let's reframe non-committal. The ultimate nuanced answer. Because good thinking is about nuance and getting comfortable with nuance. So Jennifer, I'm going to give you props for that. Also, logical fallacies. Absolutely. Yes, Ray says, aha, the consultant's answer. Yeah. As long as they follow it up with what it depends on, kind of articulating the nuances. All right. In understanding others, we want to focus on their emotions or their empathy. How do we have access to their emotions? Other than behavior, how do we have access to people's emotions? All right, we all do it. LinkedIn user, we all do it. Assumptions are sometimes driven by inherent biases. We all do so, some more than others. Yes, no, non-neurotypical people don't have the same behavior. Okay. In the world of typical, when we understand, this is a good one. I don't want to get too far off topic, but I'd like to do one on what is typical, because sometimes the behaviors we see are reflective of something going on that's atypical and something that's going on as non-typical. And I think our labels may mislead us when it comes to understanding behavior at a neurological level. That's another topic for something else. So, but it's interesting. I like what you said. They said, yes, it affects other doctors. Okay, first answer, yes, they said it affects other doctors, but it doesn't affect them. Ding, 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 ding. Ding, ding, ding. Yes, I do my best. Yeah, do my best. And that's really what we're going to do. And by the end of today, I'm going to have a bunch of questions that you're going to be able to ask yourself to prevent yourself from falling prey to this all too common blind spot bias. The blind spot bias, and there's actually, and here's the benefit of understanding the blind spot bias. The blind spot bias, if you can uncover the blind spot bias, you can uncover all kinds of blind spots that will help you in your decisions, even options and possibilities for yourself, for your teams, for all kinds of things. So this is really important. The blind spot bias is what makes us assume that we are less likely to experience or succumb to various ways of thinking that we lump together as biases than our peers or than our general population. And it's hard. It's one thing to say, I know I'm a good thinker. I'm one of the regular good thinkers on the Good Thinking Show, or I like to talk about this stuff or whatever. And maybe I would say that an awareness of bias could be the first step toward reducing blind spot bias. What do you think? Do you think, and there's some research, we'll see what you think. Do you think the awareness of bias is helpful for reducing biases? Awareness of biases. What do you think? So now that you know that there's this blind spot bias, do you think that these doctors, or if you were the doctor, you would think, yeah, but I still think I wouldn't be swayed by these pens or these trips to Zurich or these dinners or whatever, but I kind of think my best buddy colleague down the hall is probably more swayed. Do you think that awareness would make you think, maybe they're less than me. Maybe I am. Maybe I don't see all of the things that result in my behavior. Maybe I don't even know where my thoughts come from. Mind blowing. All right. Assumptions, high, based on our biases. And if we know the person some past history, absolutely. We make patterns. We tell stories. It's not supposed to happen anymore due to regulations, but a lot does. Yeah. There's a lot of pharma doc perks. Yeah. And that's been kind of nipped a little bit in the bud, which is nice. But yeah. Emotions can be reflected in their body language and can be derived from observing people, not necessarily that could be derived on one-on-one. Excellent. Let's see. They should do the study again and ask the doctors how they think other doctors will think it affects their decision. Brilliant. I love it. Barkley is always good for the twist, the research framing. I love it. Rubber chicken. I did say ideally, exactly. Disagreements and controversies between employees and their leaders is the most obvious place for the dangerous role of blind spot bias to emerge. Absolutely. And in our political discourse, how many of you feel a strong political affinity for wherever you're coming from? We got people from all over the world. So, we're coming up tomorrow on a big election in the United States, but how many of you feel a super strong political affinity? Because for those of you, I'm going to ask a question. Definitely awareness would have an impact. Okay. Yes. Awareness of a bias is a self-check. Awareness in general doesn't help. Ray's going to win the rubber chicken on this one. Awareness by itself of biases. Learning that biases exist. Learning about biases. Does not seem, and this is the part that Daniel Kahneman, the king of all of this, right? One of the kings of behavioral economics, behavioral theory, it's one of the things that has been most disconcerting is the awareness of biases doesn't help. But there are some things beyond the awareness, maybe tangential, I mean, just in addition to the awareness, can help. That Ray's right. Also depends on the database, let's see, of the existing biases. Okay. Yes, we did an unconscious bias training for our work in DEI in our company. Okay. So far, from the time that the Blind Spot was written, the book that I think it was in the late 80s, early 90s, that revealed implicit bias, so far, there has been no training that has proven to have a direct effect on the explicit bias, which is the only way you can measure implicit bias, right? Because otherwise it's just like, you can't change my thoughts, or you change my thoughts, but I behave a certain way and you only see my behavior, so whatever. It's a tricky thing. I hate to tell you, that's a tricky thing. Not really. If a person disagrees with the existence of a bias, yeah, that's a good point, Rain. Like if you don't even think the bias exists because you have a blind spot to that bias, then it kind of becomes a little bit of a challenge. Adam says, Priscilla, same here. I'm very involved in DEI. Excellent. I'm not, it's all good. We got to work toward it. We can do better. And we should go to the science to see, because even the people that wrote that original book had some pretty interesting findings about ways to overcome it. You can go, and you don't even have to sign up for a DEI thing. You can take all these implicit bias things online for free. I think came out of Harvard and University of Washington. Anyway, yes, awareness will help for some people who care. How does it look when awareness of a bias helps? What does it look like when you no longer succumb to blind spot bias? In other words, in your brain, not what you say, but in your brain, you literally no longer think that other people are more biased than you. What does that look like? Because that would be the only answer to proving that you overcame blind spot bias. Okay, so let's see same as above. Let's see what we said here. Yes. Okay. Okay. So Adam says affinity for policies, not parties. Okay. Excellent. I like that. That's really good. You can never figure out what the policies are, but sometimes it's buried in thousands of pages to which we don't have exposure, but that's, yeah. Okay. Same as above. Barclay says, maybe you can reduce your bias without awareness, but it'd be hard to know that you did. That's kind of what I was getting at. What would it look like if in your brain, not what you say, because it's the right answer, because I know to say, oh no, I'm as biased as the next person, but deep, deep, deep inside, I can't shake the fact that because I spend all this time on this good thinking stuff with y'all, that in some tiny little teeny tiny way, I might be less biased than the next door neighbor. I can't help it. How can I get rid of that feeling? How can I do it? How can I control that thought? I don't know. But if I did, sadly, I have to drop out. Bye, Adam. We'll see you next week. Are we here next week? I have to take a look at my schedule. Anyway, you always can look for the notifications. And if you do want to be notified when we do this, because sometimes I'm traveling, sometimes I have to do other things, workshops, whatever, on Monday morning, so I can't do. But if you want to know, then definitely you can follow on LinkedIn. I think that gives notifications. I don't know. We're going to work on that. And then LinkedIn is working on that. And then, or you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, Becky Saltzman, and hit that bell notification and get notified. And then if you want to watch on YouTube, you can. If you can watch on LinkedIn, so that'll tell you when we're going to do it. All right. So Abdurraj said we can perceive the existence of biases and awarenesses of them as feedback to enhance our thinking. Absolutely. But all right. Why do we have these biases? Well, are they useless? No, there's too much information. We have to filter it. Our brains are designed to filter information more than it is to take things in. Because if we saw everything, talking about neurotypical exposure, people who have maybe sensory overload issues, we don't perceive everything that a bloodhound smells, or, bats echolocate. I mean, there's creatures that perceive things that are there that we don't have access to. So we're not the most highly perceptive creatures, not by a long shot. So our brains are really designed to kind of keep stuff out. And to do that, our brains are like filtering mechanisms. And the filtering mechanism is our brains. And that is what the bias, they come up, it works like a bias. It looks like a bias. So information also doesn't provide clear meaning. Someone said, you can look at past behaviors. Yeah, you can look at past behaviors. Information doesn't come with a clear meaning, so we make it up, or we latch it on to make sense. And we use labels We use groupings. And these groupings and labels much match our pre-existing belief in the world. So if we become aware of something and we might look at someone and say, oh, okay, we see your behavior. You look this way, you come from this place, you read these kinds of things, you post these kinds of things. Your intent must be this. Yet your feelings and thoughts must be this. Yet no one said that they want people to evaluate them based on their thoughts and feelings, because they understand that no one has access to your thoughts and feelings. So what we want for ourselves is sometimes very different than what we want for other people, what we use for other people. And then there's not enough time. So we're motivated to do something, to take action, to take a stand. I mean, the idea of not having an opinion about something that everyone's talking about is like, how could you not have an opinion on this, right? That's like, even though there's millions of important things about which we could never really know enough to have a strong opinion. We haven't earned a right to a strong opinion. All right. So how many of you don't think these apply to you? So I'm going to go through a bunch of things, and then we're going to take the last few minutes to go over questions that can help you kind of uncover not only your own blind spot bias, but also blind spots in general that prevent you from seeing options, because that's ultimately makes your decision-making better, which is kind of what we do. Actually, decision-making is what we do at Applied Curiosity Lab. So that's kind of our work. This good thinking is fun too. All right. So we have, because we're made up of multiple layers, and Hussein says people who are at least able to make decisions are less aware of their own biases, and people who believe they are less biased than their peers, those with a high degree of bias, are more powerful and capable of decision-making. That's an interesting take. I don't know. Let's see. People who may, okay, maybe you're right, but let's get to it. Okay, if that's the case, Hussein, tell me which ones of these you think don't apply to you. All of you, everyone. Ready? We focus on what comes readily to mind, and we ignore what doesn't come to mind. How many of you think that doesn't apply to you? I don't focus on what comes to mind and ignore what doesn't come to mind. Or, yeah, I do that. Yes or no? Yes or no? And we'll see these yes or no's in the comments. So if you say, yes, I focus on what comes to mind, or I don't, or whatever, that makes it easier if someone's looking after the fact, but that's one of them. How about this? Do you amplify bizarre or juicy things, like things that are fed to you in the media that are like sensational or really juicy? Do you amplify those? Do you give them more meaning? Do you use that as a behavior to explain all kinds of things? Or no, not so much. What about this? How many of you seek novelty? You seek novelty? Do you, here's one that, this is probably one of my favorite ones. And it really reflects what we call at Applied Curiosity Lab, a curiosity killer. There are a lot of people who make a living storytelling, and it's super important. I'm going to get the banner off so we can take more of your comments. There are a lot of people who make a living as storytellers, and it's super important. We use stories. Our brains crave stories like dopamine, because it helps us make sense of the world. And in some ways, the more information that we have bombarding our brains, the more we rely on tidy takeaways to remember and ignore the rest. So we see something, we form a strong opinion about something, we think we understand something, we think people who don't understand it are biased, because it's our tidy takeaway. And then we rely on that takeaway. And we remove, Jennifer, who was that said, depends. I still like that. We remove the nuance required for good thinking. So we might see something, oh God, what I hear studies all the time. Oh, people, that is a fascinating study. And I'm like, yeah, but there's like 10 other options. Now we know that correlation is not causation, and yet we can't help the tidy takeaway. We can't help it. We want to put it together. We want to do that. And that's the biggest thing. How many of you might over rely on stories and tidy takeaways? Who's willing to admit it? Me, I'll admit it. It's so hard. It's so hard because it makes so much sense when people tie it all up in a bow and like this, and you can say, okay, I get that now. On to the next thing. It's so tempting. We also favor familiar things versus unfamiliar things. How many of you would say, no, I don't favor familiar things. I'm happy to, I equally focus on unfamiliar things. Well, unfamiliar things take a lot of digging to even understand them, right? Now, how many of you fill in gaps with labels, stereotypes, and generalizations? Now, here's a clue. Here's one way you know you can do that. How many of you have ever said, as a blank, and state your identity, and then state your opinion? If you have ever done that, you are falling prey to a bit of an ad hominem fallacy, a logical fallacy. I might say, as a woman, as an aging woman, I can tell you blah, 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 blah. But I should really be able to I can tell you, like as me, I could say, as me, I stubbed I hit my knee yesterday and it still hurts. Okay, fine. But when it comes to things that are explaining, like it's really you can get that label can get in the way. So if you say as a such and such, you might want to take a step back and make sure that you're interrogating what follows, because that could be that you're relying too much on your own experience and you're using that to convince other people. You're giving them a tidy takeaway. You're overusing labels. Just a hint. All right. So we've got, for sure, it feels logical, default setting. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. How about this one? We simplify mental math. How many of you love math? How many of you love math? Anyone? Anyone? Does anyone love math? How many of you simplify mental math? Like, for example, there is maybe we'll do one on something like this. That'd be kind of a fun thing. Some brain twisters that are just kind of fun. All right. We're overconfident in our beliefs. We are absolutely overconfident in our beliefs. How many of you feel that other people are more overconfident in their beliefs than you are? Haha, now you know the answer, the trick answer. And we protect our existing beliefs. We protect our existing beliefs. The idea of interrogating things that we already have checked off and know to be true is super uncomfortable. All right. So when you think about who has the biggest blind spot bias of anyone you know, who is it? You don't have to say. Do you have someone in mind? Oh, Ray loves math. Well, Ray's a data scientist. He loves math. I'd have to Roger love no, and I'm an accountant. Ray says no, and I'm an accountant. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what would make me love math. I love the idea of what math can do. Sahar, I love math. Okay, fantastic. I think math is underloved because it's not really, I don't know that people have exposure to the way to fall in love with math. So if you get lucky and you have the right kind of brain, anyway. But let's get to the questions. In the last few minutes, we're going to get to the questions that will help us ask ourselves to not only overcome blind spot bias in ourselves and stop seeing it so easily in other people, because that's easy. We don't need any help with that, but also to uncover blind spots in general, blind spots options. So here are a bunch of questions. We'll see how many we can get through in the last few minutes. Okay, ready? And you can vote them. And let me know, actually, I'm going to give you a number for them. And I'd like to know, you think you would ask yourself this? You think it would be useful, or you think, nah, not really useful? Let me know in the chat. All right, ready? Number one, you can ask yourself, what have I missed because options were hidden from me due to my emotional state? What did I miss because options were hidden from me due to my emotional states? And this is a perfect one. Tomby says, I'm math phobic. That's a perfect example. Mary said, Rain, nope. Oh, Mary's an accountant. She doesn't like math either. Okay, so what about this? Number one, does anyone feel like that would be a useful question? Like, I'm really, like, this is highly emotive. What am I missing because of that? Number two, what have I missed because options were hidden from me by someone keeping the truth from me? Like, who benefits from having you ignore other possibilities? Not that it's like malicious or anything, but like there may be some benefit from you ignoring other possibilities. Who benefits? Do you think that would be useful? What have I missed because options were hidden from me? Not necessarily were you lied to, it doesn't have to be that severe. How about this one, number three? What have I not considered because it just didn't come to mind at the time? Like, this could be something that you could ask about prior decisions, and it could also be something that you ask about decisions that you have in front of you. What have I not considered because it's just not coming to mind? That's a weird one, because you're like, well, if it was coming to mind, then it would be coming to mind. But if you look for something that's not coming to mind, how is that different? Okay, So Abdurrahman says useful because emotion tends to blind our decisions. Absolutely. Emotions affect our decisions. It is one of the things that is a VOMP, a variation, causes a VOMP, a variation in our mental processes. VOMP. Remember VOMP. Let me know if you want to do a good thinking on VOMP, V-O-M-P. Fun. All right. Something we do in some of our workshops. All right. What have I missed? This is number 4. Number 4. What have I missed because something else immediately grabbed my attention when I thought about it? Like there's a lot of distractions that, you should pay attention to this. You pay attention to this. And that is at the expense of paying attention to other things. What's tempting your attention that could be blinding you? All right. Number 5, what options have I neglected because they didn't seem exciting or show me in the best light? I didn't want to do that option. I didn't even want to explore that option because that might not make me look good. What would happen if your friends or family and their impressions of you, if you just admitted that you considered these other options? Like, I considered this. I really did. Now, number 6, and we'll try to do 10 really quickly. 10. Oh, Broccoli says, I love math. Yay, we've got a math lover. All right. What have I undervalued because it didn't fit my expectations as a tidy takeaway? When you see and draw a conclusion and fail to look at all the things that could be playing in because it doesn't fit your tidy takeaway, just that stuff doesn't matter. That's not what's important. What can you look at that may not fit in that, like a puzzle piece that doesn't fit, that you just ignore? 7, what options have I not seen in their true light because I projected stereotypes, labels, and generalities onto them? Like how many of you preface your opinion by saying as a blank? That's a way that you can highlight a stereotype or highlight a label to try to convince someone of your opinion. And that can be tricky, right? That can lead, you can be contributing to their blind spot. All right. And we'll do 10. So we got 8. What did I pass over because it was unfamiliar to me or it didn't match my personal experience? This is a big one. You ever dismiss someone because they just haven't experienced what you've experienced, so they can't understand? Blind spot bias. It contributes to blind spot bias. All right. 9, what options did I dismiss because they felt less certain or more risky? Are there possibilities you ignore because they're too risky? I'm not talking about like taking risks yourself, but just possibilities that explain the world that you just can't even consider. That might be just an inconvenient truth. It's too risky for me to think about. And number 10, there's 2 more, but I'm not going to do them because we're running way too late. What have I ignored or neglected because I overestimated my ability to control certain situations? I overestimated how much I control the world. So I ignored or neglected certain possibilities, certain options, certain opinions, certain beliefs, certain thoughts. All right. That's number 10. So that is it for blind spot bias. I do think that it's a fun thing to end with Dostoevsky's quote, the author: lying to ourselves is more deeply ingrained than lying to others. So let's work on telling ourselves the truth. Have a great week. Bye-bye.